So Joe Biden has apparently narrowed down his VP pick to a couple of cops. Now, more specifically, Kamala Harris, former prosecutor, and Val Demings, a former police chief. So this is news from Fox Business reporter here, Charles Gasparino. So he tweeted out, breaking, Dem sources say as of now, Joe Biden VP is between Kamala Harris and Val Demings. Despite Demings' lower name recognition, I am told that she has a legitimate shot. Insiders worried about Harris's record as a prosecutor that can be attacked by the left and Trump. Now, he appears to forget the fact here or not realize that Val Demings also has a record in law enforcement. So either way here, I mean, and really, when it comes to Trump, regardless of who Biden picks, Trump's going to attack the person. But when it comes to, meeting this moment in terms of what's going on in the country with these protests, Black Lives Matter, a real focus on injustice and criminal justice, to pick one of two cops, I don't really think is the best idea. Now, as I've said in the past, I think this election really is about getting out Donald Trump. So regardless of who Biden picks as his VP, I don't think it's really going to hurt him because, again, the focus is going to be on getting out Donald Trump. But if it comes to, when thinking about the future, say Biden wins and we don't expect him to really be president for 2 terms based on where his age and his mind currently is. So when you think about the future and who may take over, either of these picks just are not adequate here. So first, let's do Kamala Harris. Now, instead of me going through her history as I've done before in other videos in the past when she was running for president, let me just, this sequence here during one of the debates, I think does it best. So this is Tulsi Gabbard challenging Kamala Harris on her record.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
So that really is one of the highlight moments from any of the debates. Tulsi Gabbard just really taking down Kamala Harris, and ultimately it's definitely part of what led to Kamala Harris not doing very well in the primary. Also, though, I don't want to retread these old conversations, but also Kamala Harris backing off of Medicare for All, Also, if you look at polling when that happened, that had a clear direct impact on Kamala Harris and her success or lack thereof as well. But Kamala Harris would have a lot to deal with if she were the VP pick. I mean, there's countless stories like this one from theappeal.org. Kamala Harris's criminal justice record killed her presidential run. So it goes through a lot of it and really details how that was a major part of the issue. So again, in terms of beating Trump, I don't think this is really going to be an issue. But when you're looking forward into the future, in terms of who may take over control from Joe Biden, these are things to think about. Now, Val Demings. So Val Demings, former police chief of Orlando. I did not know much about Demings, as she's fairly new to Congress. But going through some of her history here, and just based on what other people have said about her that do know her, she also is a risky choice when it comes to meeting this moment. So this is from The Atlantic. Again, all links are below the video. So when I cut this from the live stream, you will have a link to that below the video. But let me just read, a couple of pieces here. So this first paragraph. The department has a long record of excessive force allegations. So this is in Orlando. And lack of transparency on the subject, dating back at least as far as Demings' time as chief. From 2010 to 2014, the department paid out more than $3.3 million in damages following at least 47 lawsuits alleging false arrest, excessive force, and other complaints against the department's officers. Records about these cases and other allegations of police misconduct in Orlando are not centrally housed or publicized, and some lawsuits are still outstanding. Back in 2008, an Orlando Weekly expose described the Orlando Police Department as a place where rogue cops operate with impunity, and there's nothing anybody who finds himself at the wrong end of their short fuse can do about it. Demings responded defensively, quote, "Looking for a negative story in a police department is like looking for a prayer at a church," she wrote in an Orlando Sentinel op-ed. Quote, "It won't take long to find one." Before I go on, I don't understand how that's supposed to be a defense. Saying, "Oh, it's so easy to find negative stories in police departments." Is that supposed to be a defense of what's been going on? So again, when it comes to, being in the public eye and having to actually engage when it comes to criticisms, if this is the Val Demings approach to criticism, it's not going to be very successful. But more here. In the same op-ed, Demings cast doubt on video evidence that conflicted with officers' statements in excessive force cases, writing, quotes, "A few seconds, even a video, rarely capture the entire set of circumstances." The excessive force complaints continued throughout Demings' tenure. In 2010, an officer flipped an 84-year-old man upside down and broke his neck after the man became belligerent. Demings initially said, quote, "The officer performed the technique within department guidelines," but a federal jury later disagreed, awarding the victim $880,000 in damages. So again, showing you that Demings did nothing to really challenge the system that was in place and ultimately just continued it and defended it. So here you have, actually, I have more here. I'm not sure how much. I could read a lot more. Let me just get a couple more paragraphs here. This is from The Hill. But as Demings' star rises, some Black Lives Matter and other progressive activists are taking aim at her tenure as Orlando's first female police chief, which spanned 2007 to 2011. And they are questioning whether someone who spent a decades-long career in law enforcement is right for this moment. Quote, "While she was chief of police, I felt like public policies and changes to address community policing should have been done. It was not," said Luana Gelzer, president of the National Action Network's Central Florida chapter. "We've had a problem here for years. I will go vote, but I will not vote for her if she's on that ticket," Gelzer added. "Biden needs to listen to the people of Orlando and of Florida and elsewhere, not law enforcement at this time." So there's more here. Again, links are always going to be below the video. But you have here two choices where either way you're losing. I don't mean the election, but you're losing in terms of the future as a future leader of the Democratic Party. So, like, the choices that I want to see, obviously Joe Biden is not considering Nina Turner, Barbara Lee. I mean, Barbara Lee is one that I think he would be able to at least envision, as opposed to Nina Turner, who I think he just would find would be someone who's going to challenge him too much. Who obviously Biden doesn't want that. But Barbara Lee is also a good choice. Also not being considered here. So to have the list come down to 2 cops, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. And I'm not really surprised. This is what the Democratic Party has done for years. It's all about symbolism. It's not about challenging the actual systems in place. It's all about, hey, if we got a black woman on the ticket, that's all that matters. Her record, what she's done, what she fights for, who cares? Will she fall in line? Will she continue this system of propping up corporate interests, propping up wealthy interests, of being just the lesser of 2 evils? Then great. That's all we care about. So that's what the party has been for the past 30, 40 years. It's what they're going to try and continue the party to be. But they risk, I mean, in 4 years, say Biden wins this election. In 4 years, they risk something because neither of these VPs are going to be a solid presidential candidate. So, we'll see if this is actually what Biden's list ends up being, if he does choose one of these candidates or politicians as his VP. But let's hope he reconsiders. Junie McGrath says, I have a lot of criticisms of Harris, but at least recently her Bernie and Ed Markey have led the charge of a $2,000 a month in the Senate, but Mitch the Turtle McConnell won't bring it for a vote. That's fair. I could have been a little more fair to Kamala Harris in that sense, because she has been, at least rhetorically, a little better and has signed on to that $2,000 a month bill. And she's attempting to make some at least rhetorical moves. I saw her on, I think it was Lawrence O'Donnell's show recently, talking about why the protests are in the streets and why they should continue even after the election. So she's at least trying to soften the blow a little bit if she becomes the vice president. She's gonna have a lot of work to do, though. I mean, she's gonna have to admit to the mistakes that she made in the past, because so far all she's done is just deflect. You cannot deflect when you were a top prosecutor and you acted the way that you acted. You have to come to terms with what you did, admit to it, discuss it, talk about how you were in this system. You didn't challenge the system. No one else challenged. Like it's fair to point out how no one else challenged it either, but you were part of that system. You didn't challenge it, and come to terms with that. People respect you if you can admit your mistakes, recognize what you did wrong, and actually show some real change in what you are now fighting for and what you are now going to do. So in that sense, I do think Kamala Harris would be a little better than Val Demings from what I've seen of Val Demings. Val Demings is still very fresh out of the police force. I just don't. If it comes down to those two, I would pick Kamala Harris over Val Demings. But again, why is that the list? The list could be a lot better.